Morning and welcome to our webinar series. We'll just be starting in a few moments. We're just waiting for a few people to join us, and very soon we'll be starting our webinar on why your business needs Xero accounting. Good morning again. So if you're joining us for the first time through our webinar series, just a couple of housekeeping things. We'll be going through the presentation and you'll be able to ask questions throughout the presentation. Just look for the chat icon and ask any questions in there. Perhaps now if you go to chat and just say hi so that we know that that's working. Chat's available, I think, in the menu bar. So that's great. So good morning and welcome to Martin and Sonia. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to get started right now, and yeah, feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we go along. So today we're looking at why your business needs Xero accounting, and I think the first question we look at before we get to there is why your business needs a better accounting system. The first thing that we'll be looking at is why it's an important thing for your business. So before we go much further, just a quick note about me. So I've been doing this for a very long time, 25 years. I'm a qualified accountant and a business growth specialist, and my passion is for helping businesses, small and medium, to build value, increase their profits, and to take a look at the bigger picture. So getting a more efficient and effective business process is a key step to that. So at Premium Solutions, we're Xero partners, silver partners, and we've been with Xero. I've been with Xero since it first started in Australia. Very keen to get on board with it when it launched in Australia. So for many people, the whole accounting process is not something they enjoy. Many small business equate doing their record keeping and their bookkeeping as worse than going to the dentist for a root canal. It's something that people don't enjoy. Unfortunately, it is essential. It's something that has to be done every day. If you don't do it, there's consequences. So if you don't keep your records, you won't be able to comply with your obligations for income tax. You won't be able to supply financials for banks. You won't know how well you've gone in your business, whether you've made a profit or not. But it's an essential thing. So just like good hygiene and brushing your teeth will save you that uncomfortable trip to the dentist, getting the accounting process right will save you a lot of pain with compliance. But there's more to getting it right than just compliance. There's a lot more you can do with the information from your accounting system. Information that will help you actually run your business more effectively and help you achieve the goals that you've got for your business. So one of the benefits, what are the benefits from moving to Xero? Xero is a cloud-based accounting system. Now that's not a new thing. Xero's been around for a number of years now, as have other cloud accounting software that's developed. It's not a new concept, but it's still a concept that people are not very familiar with. So the benefits really from moving to a cloud system, and in particular Xero, are that you can get everything done accurately, done right the first time. And the processes and methods of the cloud-based accounting software make that a lot easier to achieve. And efficiency is a big goal. We all have limited time. We can't create more time, but we can just use that time more effectively. So if we can use the least amount of our resources and the least amount of effort to achieve the same, if not a better result, then that's a great outcome for us. So we're all time poor. The other issue is cost effectiveness. So how much does it cost us to actually have a proper set of accounting records, and how quickly can we get to that process? So certainly the disruption caused by cloud accounting, in particular Xero, has made that process a lot more cost effective for small and medium businesses everywhere. particularly cutting out a lot of the traditional accounting functions. So that's been a great thing. And the added bonus here is the information you get from your up-to-date accounting records. You can use that information to look at your business closely, work out where you are going, what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, what are the trends. Use that information to improve not only your business processes, but to run a much better business. So where to start in this process, the first step is always to decide to make a change. And if you're on the webinar today because you're interested in making that change, so well done, you've taken the first step. So the other options you have there, well, the first option is really to identify what you need to do. And there are a number of options available. Certainly in terms of looking at your business, it's a good way to step outside your business and look at what it really needs to do. So we have mandatory compliance obligations, but also what else do you need to get from that information? What do you need to know? The key things are profit, how much cash you've got, but also who is buying from you, how frequently do they buy from you, and how can you contact those people to make more purchases from you. So making the process more efficient, or starting the process, there's 3 steps or 3 aspects we can look at. Is eliminating unnecessary work and eliminating steps from the process so that it takes less time. Often we can automate a process, so instead of doing a manual process, we can automate, or we can delegate that process to somebody else. I'm a big fan of automation. As I've mentioned already, cloud accounting is no longer a new concept. It's been with us for many years now. So it's not a new concept, but it's still a key method of achieving a better outcome. With automation, we can often use tools to avoid any kind of data entry or minimize that data entry, and how we take advantage of that is through bank feeds, which will show how that's going to happen. Avoiding duplication of work, data, not having to enter things in 2 different places, using systems to automatically collate and read that information. So reliable sources, so banks, and coding straight from the source documents and one touch into your accounting system. The other thing is, where is that data going to go and be set up properly? So if it's set up properly from the beginning, the data will go in the right spots. There's no point having a system where you set that up and you get to the wrong place faster. So a benefit of the automation is that we can improve our accuracy and make it more efficient. The other options you've got, instead of going down the track of automating through using cloud accounting like Xero, is to delegate or outsource the problem to somebody else. So with delegating and outsourcing, there are similarities. Delegating is often within your organisation and outsourcing is to somebody else. And one of the common ways of looking at outsourcing is to use a bookkeeper. Chances are, though, that the bookkeeper you use will be relying upon cloud accounting systems like Xero to produce that information for you. So there are always options there, but one of the things I look at is, even when you delegate or outsource, you still have, as a business owner, you still have responsibility for the quality of the information and the compliance. So it's not, you can't avoid the responsibility for it. You're just getting somebody else to do that work for you. You still recommend to view the reports and check that what's going on and make sure it is actually correct, and make sure that the information is telling you what you need to know. So that is important, but there are some other issues when you delegate or outsource in terms of who has control or access to your data, where's that data being stored, and how secure it is. And we'll go through some of the security side of it when we look closer at Xero, which we're going to get to very soon. So why Xero? So what we love about Xero is a pure cloud-based and easy-to-use accounting system. So Xero was designed for the internet. It wasn't an old traditional desktop product that was migrated to the cloud. It was written purely to be accessed using cloud solutions. One single platform. What that means is that you have your Xero ledger and your accountant or tax agent will use that same ledger and that same set of information to complete your financial statements and tax return. So traditionally in the past, an accountant would take the client's information, export that or re-enter it into a proper accounting system and produce the financial statements and tax return from there, then send back adjusting entries to the business owner or their bookkeeper. So there was a lot of double handling in there and a lot of unnecessary work. So having that single ledger eliminates that double handling, that double data entry, and we're all talking on the same page with the one set of figures, the one version of the truth. And that means that collaborating between the business owner, your advisor, your accountant, it's based on one set of facts. You can control the sharing of that information and it's a lot more secure. So cloud is good in that sense, in terms of it allows us to do much more. Flexibility. In the past, we were tied to our computer on our desk. That's no longer the case. We can access our information anywhere, anytime, and on any device. So Xero is not designed to work with one kind of operating system or application or on any specific kind of software. It's accessible on any kind of web browser, so you can use it on your phone, a tablet. Doesn't matter if it's Apple or Microsoft or Google. You can access that Xero ledger anywhere, anytime. And because of that, there are some security features that Xero have in place to make sure your data remains secure in that. So increased efficiency saves you a significant amount of time. That will also mean that the way you run your business will change. You will not be spending as much time doing the record keeping, which means you have more time to work on your business. And that's a great opportunity for small business to improve, because business is not about doing administration and bookkeeping unless that is your business. But most small business owners go into business to run a business, to grow a business and to make profit. They're not in the business to do paperwork. So we can eliminate that and give you more time to run your business the way that you need to. One of the benefits as well of Xero is that unlimited users, you pay one subscription with unlimited users, which makes it more cost effective. And on the security side, Xero's security features are bank level or higher. And even if your computer or your device gets lost or stolen, your data is intact. It's backed up reliably on multiple times, so it's retrievable at any time. Compare that to traditionally where you had a computer with the software resident on the computer. If your computer got lost or stolen or somebody spilled coffee on it, your data was lost as well. So there are significant improvements, and we now also have in Xero this, which is becoming more and more common across any kind of cloud access, is two-factor authentication, which just increases the security of access to your data. So let's take a look at Xero. No questions at the moment, so we'll move right into the demonstration of Xero. So you should now be looking at the Xero dashboard. And so when you first log into Xero, you will get this dashboard here on the screen. So the blue banner across the top with your different menu options and the dashboard on the front. So on the dashboard, it's arranged so that you can get a snapshot of what's happening in your business and what's happened overnight. When you wake up every morning and you log in, this is what you'll see. So you'll see your bank accounts on the left-hand side, and down the bottom of on the left, you'll get a summary of the cash in and out, which is sometimes useful to see, so you've got an idea of what's going in and out. This is a bit of a worry for this business. On the right, we have an account watch list. So there might be certain expenses or income lines that you want to keep an eye on, but you don't want to run a report. You just want to see at a glance how it's tracking. So key thing here is sales for the month. It's been a very slow month so far. and then your year-to-date figures for those relevant accounts. And this can be modified to suit your preferences. Sales information, so is critical. How many draft invoices or draft sales, how many invoices are outstanding, how many are overdue in excess of your normal payment terms. You can see this as a glance, and you can see a graphical representation of how slow people are paying you or fast. So the faster they pay, you would have more of your debtors or receivables over here. Similarly, you have your expenses on summarised with invoices that you need to pay, what you've paid late, and again, a graphical representation. So we can go and edit or create a sales invoice or a purchase invoice from this screen. We can go into those sections, and likewise we can go straight to our bank account to do our reconciliation and data entry in here. But I'm going to show you very briefly across the top what the different menu options are. So under your name, we can go into a few different options. So the key one here will be the settings and files. We'll come back to those files, but settings is where we would go to update. The dashboard is where we are. Under business, we have access to our sales, our purchases, and then products and services is more like your inventory items or standard types of transactions. So standard services that you offer and expense claims for employees. Under the accounting side, under the accounting drop-down menu, we can set up our standard reports such as activity statements, running age receivables, so we can see in detail who needs to pay us and how old the debts are. We can do cash summaries, and there are more reports in there. We can also maintain our fixed assets, or we can go to our bank accounts. So there's a few options there. If you need payroll, we can do all of the payroll activities that we need to from here. From Xero, we can create new employees, set up their standard pays, record and request annual leave, personal carers leave. We have a basic timesheet function, and we can do our superannuation guarantee calculations, reporting and payments all through Xero. And from 1 July 2019, you'll also be able to manage your single touch payroll requirements through payroll. Projects is also an option that is available to you for Xero, which is an add-on. It's a very useful tool if you do project work. Contacts is where we can manage our customer database or our supplier database, and we can also set up groups of similar types of customers or suppliers. So we'll go through these in a bit more detail, starting with the bank account. So there are a couple of ways to access your bank account. The first one is just from the dashboard, clicking on the bank account, or we can click on the reconcile items. Or the third option is to come up to accounting and click on bank accounts. So I'm going to click on the blue item, which actually tells me that I have 28 transactions that I haven't reconciled. So I've got a bit of work to do this morning. So whenever we go into Xero, the first time we go to an area, we get a help screen, which tells us a little bit about what's going on in this section of Xero. We have the option to watch some videos on how to do it. There are a lot of videos explaining how to do the basic functions, or you can go and see the written guides on the step-by-step functions. So we're going to skip all that today, and I'm just going to hide that help section. So again, we have a logical display of what's going on in our business. So across the top, we've got reconcile, which is where we're going to do most of the work. Cash coding is where we would have a lot of transactions, and we want to code those in bulk. Just click on that. So we can do our data entry through here as well. Bank statements is where we check what bank information we've loaded in, and we can get the statement line information or just the statements telling us the date that this statement's been entered into Xero. And we can look at past transactions. So we'll start at the logical place, which is reconciling transactions. On the left-hand side, we have our bank statement lines. On the bank statement, these bank statement lines, we can set up an automatic data feed so that your information on what happened yesterday in your bank account will feed directly into Xero overnight. So we have a few unposted, reconciled transactions. So on this side, we have a deposit here from Ridgeway University for $6,187.50. So if you look at your log into your banking and check, you will have a deposit transaction on the 3rd of February for $6,187.50. And the spending money as well, so withdrawals from your bank account will be under the spent column. And this is where we see the bank transactions from your actual bank account. On the right-hand side is where we tell Xero how to treat that transaction. So Xero will allow you to very quickly process. In this case here, the one that's highlighted green, we actually have sent an invoice to Ridgeway University for $6,187.50. Xero, through its processes, can read your bank statement item and say that that's a deposit from Ridgeway University for $6,187.50. Is that the payment of that invoice? And if that is correct, all we need to do is hit OK. And we've recorded that that invoice has been paid by our customer. The same works with purchases, recording the actual payment against the payment or the purchase that we have made. So where the transaction is highlighted green, it's suggesting that there is a match to a bank statement line item. We also have the option on this side to match to multiple entries. So we can choose to match a payment or receipt against multiple entries. Create is where we would put in details. So in this case, we have a payment to Cooper Street Bakery. And I'm just going to create that as a new contact. So you can see that I have the option to create a new contact on the fly. I don't have to go into a separate screen, create the contact, then come back into my bank reconciliation. I can just create that contact from here. And then I'm going to choose the account, and I'm going to choose meeting. No, I think we'll go back to the old fallback of general expenses, which I don't normally recommend. And we're going to say staff meeting as the description of what we actually spent that money for. We have the option to set up tracking by different categories. In this file, where we've got our sales categories set up by east, north, south, and west, we could set up a tracking category according to the different salespeople, or whether we're dealing with, say, residential or commercial customers. We have the option to track those different types of categories, and we can run our reports based on those categories as well. GST treatment is also entered in this process. So for most expenses, or most entries, the GST treatment is set up to match the account code, but we can override that and put in a different code. So we might say that it's a GST-free expense in this situation. And if that's correct, we can then hit OK, and that transaction has been processed. You'll see here in the blue, we have what they call a rule. So we have the option to set up a bank rule. And what that bank rule does is, when we load our bank statements, or when the bank statements are reported overnight, the bank rule operates so that we don't have to manually enter in the transactions each time they come up. So every time, if 7-Eleven is where we're going to purchase fuel every time, then we don't need to create a rule. We don't need to manually enter. We can create a rule that says every time at 7-Eleven, we're going to process that to petrol, and then next time we go in, sorry, going to drag that over. Just bear with me, I've gone too far ahead. So just while I'm getting back into the right file, I've got a question about, does it come with a mobile phone app for entering expenses? So there is a mobile phone app for Xero. You can use Xero on the go. In terms of entering expenses, you can use Xero. There are also some other options which we'll run through later on. But yes, there is a mobile phone app. In terms of using that for expenses, there may be a more efficient way of doing it, but yes, certainly there is one in Xero. You can use the mobile phone app for checking your invoices, reconciling your bank account as well. So that is available there, and might have a look at that later on. Okay, sorry, apologies. We're going back into demonstration. I just want to show, so we've got the bank rule there, and again, we press OK. So if I want to create a bank rule, it's very simple. I'll just create a bank rule here, and I have a few options. I can select whether I can set some conditions. I can set multiple conditions in there and say it's got to meet all or any. And then I've got a few different options of what the rule is going to be. I'm going to change any text field equals bank fee, and I'm going to say which contact that is for. I want a description. The rate, GST rate, has come up as GST free, and I'm going to say that the reference is from the reference that's come in from the bank statement. I like to enter as few pieces of information when I'm processing as possible. And I'm going to run this rule on all bank accounts. So that means if I open a second bank account, that rule will apply on that bank account as well. So now you'll see that we now have that transaction is blue, and we're going to apply that bank rule. So another way that Xero helps in streamlining getting your information in quickly, we've got one here for Central City parking. We're just going to process this rule. I'm going to hit OK. And then you'll see down here that this Central City parking doesn't have any details. It's waiting for me. But because I've already put in for one transaction, Central City parking goes to travel and is parking, next time I go in or refresh my screen, it remembers that I've coded Central City parking to travel, and I've put the description of parking and I've coded it to that region. And if that's still correct, I just have to hit OK. I don't have to enter any data. It's very quick to reconcile your transactions. Now, what happens if you have a deposit that is for multiple invoices? We have the option here. So for this deposit here for Jacaranda Maple Systems, we're going to go and match that. And I'm just searching because I want to get to that invoice quickly. I can start typing part of the name, and Xero is telling me that I don't actually have any invoices in there for that, that customer at the moment, but I still want to reconcile my transaction. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a new transaction, and I'm going to receive that as a prepayment from that customer. And I would put that to a liability account because that customer, I have to refund that money to the customer if they don't proceed. I'm going to save that transaction now and process it. And the same with paying to your suppliers. You can have more than one invoice paid by the same payment. So we have 2 invoices for Smart Agency. I can select each one, and then it tells me that I've applied the whole amount of the payment against all the invoices outstanding. The other option we've got here is I want to mark that this $1,500 is a part payment of this invoice from Pinnacle Management. So how I do that is I select the invoice from Pinnacle Management, and then as soon as I select and the invoice amount doesn't match, it says that the invoice is $1,580 more than my deposit. I can now come and click on the blue split, and it will suggest to me that it's a part payment and the remaining amount. And if I would choose to accept that, I select split, and it creates a part payment of that invoice. Okay, so no questions at this stage. I'm now going to, what we would do is we would proceed and we would get rid of all of these invoices, these bank transactions, so that at the end of the day, we have completed our reconciliation for the day. But what we're going to do now is go across to our sales side. So we can do that a couple of ways. We can go back to the dashboard, and we can click on new sales invoice, which is how we could create a new sales invoice, or I could jump in to see how many invoices are awaiting payment. The other way I can go to my invoices is click on business and go to sales overview. So when I get to the overview, I have my draft invoices. It tells me I've got 1 invoice that's awaiting approval, 9 invoices outstanding, 3 of which are overdue. And I can see very quickly my biggest 5 customers and how much money they owe me. I can see that Pinnacle Management now still has a balance of $1,580. We processed that part payment of $1,500. So if I want to go and see more detail about who owes me money, I can click on the awaiting payment, and it will bring up the full list of invoices that are outstanding. Again, if we look at this Pinnacle Management invoice, we can see that they've paid $1,500 and they still have $1,580 that's due. So I can see at a glance. Now, I have the option here to put a note and say that the balance due this Friday, and I can mark a note that I'm expecting to be received on Friday. So next time I look in, I can say that I was expected to get paid on the 15th, and if I didn't get paid on the 15th, I can give them a call and say, "How you promised to pay me? Where is the balance of the check of the invoice?" Creating an invoice is very straightforward. We can go and click on New Invoice. We can choose a customer. So just start typing and it will come up with a full list. Select the customer, the date of the invoice, so I can change that invoice. I might want to date it yesterday because that's when I meant to send it. I can say when the invoice is due. I can choose by clicking the drop down. I can type the date in, or I can actually say I want the due date 7 days after the invoice. I can put a reference on it. We can set up different ways that the invoice is going to look. So this is where we would choose. We might have a special invoice for this one. And we're going to choose. Now, when we talked about products and services on the menu options, this gives me the option to choose pre-formatted line items, so services. So we have project management and implementation, due diligence, and when I select that, it will come up with pre-populated text. I just need to choose the quantity. So I already have my price set, so I might say that the quantity is actually 10, and that will update the total of that line item. If I want to add an extra invoice line item, and spell check is also available to make that sure that you're not sending out invoices with spelling mistakes in it. And I can change the sales account as well. So I might say that that's not actually my sale, but it's another kind of revenue. And I can choose to save that or approve it. So I might actually, before I approve it, I want to preview it and see what it looks like. So I have my invoice set up, and this is telling me that it's a draft. I haven't actually approved it yet. We have the name of the customer and where it's coming from. The details of the invoice, you note that the customer doesn't see the sales codes that you put on there, and the payment details. And if the customer views the invoice on their mobile phone, this is what it will look like. So it comes across very neat and professional. So when I approve the invoice, I can now choose to email that directly to my customer. So if I choose to invoice, I can choose to send that invoice across. I can choose to send a copy of that invoice to me if I really need to. But in the invoice email, it will say, hi customer, here's your invoice, and here's an online link to view your invoice, but we can also send it as a PDF attached to the email. And we can edit this text to say, use our own wording, advising the customer that we've sent them an invoice. So I can hit send. And we can also choose different invoice email templates. So if a customer hasn't paid and you want to resend the invoice, you can send it with, say, an overdue reminder, which is a bit better than just sending the same invoice email over and over. Okay. The other option with our invoicing to streamline things, if we've got the same invoice to send each time, we actually have the choice here to turn this invoice into a repeating invoice. Now, what will happen with a repeating invoice is we can choose to say how frequently we're going to invoice this transaction, whether it be monthly or weekly, and how many weeks. So it might be we're going to bill them every 2 weeks, and the due date's going to be 7 days after the invoice date, but we want to finish invoicing by the 19th of April. And what will happen if I actually go back and change that first date to the 12th, as soon as I hit OK, it will generate the first invoice because the next invoice date is dated prior to today. Now, the other options we have with repeating invoices is that we can create them as a draft invoice so that we can check them. We can create them as an approved invoice ready to send, and we just have to manually send. Or what I love to do is, if there's no changes going to be needed, is we select approve for sending. And then what we do is create the invoice, email address, and normally when we're setting up our customers, we'll put in their email address so that that will come up automatically. And then when we hit save, it will create the invoice and it will automatically have been sent. So here is our list of repeating invoices we've set up, and you'll see we've now got 2 new invoices, the one we created first and then the repeating invoice with the 12th date. It's also updated the invoice number sequentially. We also have the option in here to create credit notes or to void invoices that shouldn't have been issued. So there's a lot of flexibility in there. The other important thing, which hopefully you won't need to do because all your customers are going to pay you on time, is we can use Xero to send statements. Now we have the option to send a list of what happened in a particular period. So we can say in this month, these are all the invoices and all the payments that were made on your account. Or we can choose to just show the outstanding invoices, and we can change the date to suit when we want to send out the statements. We can select all customers to send statements to, or we might not want to send them the statement to everybody. The other important thing, which I just forgot to do, is every time you change the date, you do need to go update, and it will update the selections here. So we can see that these customers have paid since the 31st of January, and we don't have as many statements to send. Now, again, we can choose to select all customers to send the statement to, or we might not want to send a statement to this customer because we've just spoken to them on the phone and they've told us they're going to pay on Friday. And then we can choose to print those. I'm not sure why we need to do that, or we just email it to the customer. And that is invoicing, sales invoices. Purchase orders, purchases or expenses, very similar process. The difference is that it's customers that, sorry, not customers, suppliers that have invoiced you. So the process works the same. We can create an invoice. We can view what's outstanding. We can see who we owe money to and when it's due. I can create a new bill. So I can say from, let's say, Woolworths. And I might have an item here. Say I bought some golf balls, and I can change the price. They're on sale. And I can approve that. The other thing I can do is I can attach a file, a copy of the invoice. Now I can do that by uploading a file from my desktop. Or I can create a file library where I send my invoices to. But there are also some other tools which we'll touch on briefly after we finish the Xero demonstration. Okay. The other thing is, if your totals don't match, it won't let you approve the invoice. Okay, so purchases works pretty much the same way, and again, we can set up a repeating invoice, which is fairly good for things like telephone, electricity, regular invoices that are going to be the same amount every month. We can set up a repeating invoice so that we don't have to create them. And again, like with sales invoices, we can set those up to be automatically approved, generated with a description. That saves us that process of entering the data for that invoice every month. And that time adds up when you've got, say, 10 or 20 monthly invoices. The time that you save there, if you look at 3 minutes per invoice, that's an hour you've saved each month. Very quickly, the time savings add up and you've saved yourself a lot of time. So in accounting, we can also look after our fixed assets. We can record those and do the depreciation so that complies. So we have the option to add a new item. So we bought some office furniture. And I can say that that was for the North region. I can put when the warranty is going to expire. In 1 year's time, I can put a description. And choose when the depreciation is going to start. So I might say that it was purchased on the 10th, but it didn't get delivered till the 15th. And I have a few options for how I calculate my depreciation. I can say that it's going to be fully depreciated at the time of purchase, which means that it'll just write off the whole balance, or I can do it on a straight line method, let's say 30%. Or we can also set up asset pools, so the small business general pool, low value pools, those can be set up as well in fixed assets. We can also run depreciation. I'm just going to run it up to the end of the month. It will tell me how much the depreciation is going to be, and I'll say confirm. And now it tells me that depreciation is up to date. Section we need to go to is really the reporting side. So we have reports, and you'll see the star reports. These are reports that I have starred and commonly view. So I'm most interested in my activity statement, age payables, receivables, balance sheet, cash summary, and profit and loss. But if I want to look at some other reports, I will need to come up to the top level and click on reports. Also, if I want to access my payroll reports, I will need to go in through that same method. You're unable to star payroll reports. That's an extra security feature, but all my payroll reports are also available from this screen. Just on this section, you can set different levels of access for different employees. So some employees might only have access to create sales invoices, and they won't have access to see any reports. So you can limit how much an employee can see and which sections of Xero they can access. So if I wanted to add a different kind of report to my drop-down menu, so I don't have to come in and select it each time, I can click on the star, and I might want to do that for account transactions, which lets me drill down and see what's in a particular account over a period. And I might just want to see very quickly what office equipment I've been spending on. I can see a complete listing of it. Back under reports, we have a few options for profit and loss, balance sheet, a lot of different options, and there are new report styles that are coming out regularly. In here, I can choose to do different kinds of layouts of my reports. I can compare previous period, year to date, compare periods. I can choose how many comparative periods I want. I can add a budget comparison and update that report. So within all of the Xero reports, there's a lot of flexibility to filter and narrow down what information you want to see and the format you want to see it in. Most useful report for a small business is the activity statement report. Now, Simple BAS is available, and you can choose to use the Simple BAS report, or you can choose to use a traditional calculation method. Now, depending on your circumstances, the Simple BAS is much more concise. Personally, I like the full BAS and installments, and the reason I like that is it gives me a much bigger audit trail. So it's just getting me to confirm my GST settings, and now I'm going to go back into activity statements now that I've set that up. So with the full BAS, I can see whether it's an installment activity statement or a business activity statement. I can choose the dates that I'm going to report. So I'm looking at the December quarter here. Click on update to update the data to get the correct field. And because it's a business activity statement, I'm now also reporting on GST. So here is the business activity statement information. Now, I haven't got my payroll set up for this, but if I did, it will populate my payroll figures as well. And I would manually put in my PAYG installment information. So this is the summary: total sales, total purchase, non-capital purchases, GST collected, GST paid. I've got no wages for this period and no PAYG instalment, so that's the total. If I did have a PAYG instalment, it would update the amount payable. I can check my GST calculation if I need to, and probably more importantly is I can check the audit trail of my GST calculation, and I can see what information has gone into GST on income, what's gone into GST on expenses, what are GST free. Okay, and this is particularly good because we can scan this and see if there are any non-GST transactions or GST free transactions that have incorrectly been coded as having GST. Government body fees, like rates, licenses are a common one that sneak into GST on expenses. And we can see what's excluded. So payroll expenses, manual depreciation, bank transactions will be excluded. So if I'm happy with that, I can go back to my business activity statement and I can publish that report as being final. And then once that report's published, I can export it to PDF or to Excel. Now, a new feature that is about to come out is that you'll have the capability of being able to lodge your activity statement direct with the ATO from within Xero. That's a really new feature which is on its way out as we speak, and we're keeping an eye on how that works. But that gives you the ability to go through and lodge your activity statement direct from your ledger without having to go into another software system to lodge, or even worse, send in a paper statement. So we have a lot of reports available to us, which tell us a lot of information. Just recapping, when we first came in, we went to the dashboard, which gave us a snapshot. We've been busy, so we've coded some of those transactions that were outstanding. We've issued a couple of invoices, also marked off some of them paid. We can see that our sales figure has gone up at a glance. I could go back into my invoices and just double check what's going on and confirm that I did actually send that invoice across to Banrock Station. I can do the same with my purchases. I've got all my reports available, or I can go into my bank account and do some more work. I've also got all of my bank accounts here, and when I've finished reconciling all the transactions, I do get the little green tick. From within the bank, we can set up a bank feed. What the bank feed does is it stops you having to enter your transactions each day, and that saves you time. So what is happening here is this data is coming in directly from the bank, and we can check where that data is coming in from. When we go to the bank statement, it will actually say, in this case, it's an imported line, bank information, because we're working on a demonstration file. If we were in a live file and we had a bank feed set up, it would say that the source of those transactions is a bank feed. Now, most bank feeds will come in daily, early in the morning. So we have the bank feeds will come in, and we will be able to get that data in automatically, saves you processing it. If the bank feed doesn't work for some reason, we can actually extract the data and import it directly into Xero, which will save you time. Okay, so we talked a bit about the efficiency gains from Xero. One of the advantages of Xero is that it does integrate with so many other packages that provide other efficiencies, and some of the things that they deal with are invoicing, jobs management, tracking of time, more detailed inventory management, CRM, one of the key one is your expenses, bills and expenses, and there are a number of applications which can be used to even streamline further the gathering of your expense information. So we can use a tool that will automatically read the data off your invoice and pre-code that and send it across to Xero as a draft or an approved invoice, saving you even more time. One of the great things about Xero is they've designed the product so many different applications can integrate with it, making data sharing and easier and saving a lot of time. From entering that data. So there's a whole range of applications at this time. There's over 600 that integrate with Xero, and there are plenty of options. So in terms of pricing, the pricing is a monthly subscription which includes GST. The premium levels are what you need to have for superannuation, and the premium levels also allow you to have multiple currencies. So we can, those subscriptions can be set up, and what we can see is the number of payroll employees that you can have for each level of subscription. So thank you for attending. If you've got any further questions, feel free to send them through to us or keep in touch with us through our social media, or even subscribe to our newsletter and updates for future webinars and events. And thank you for your time this morning, and have a great day.